Tiffany, let's start with the economy. We got some economic data today, but there's a lot of cross currents, as Julie was just mentioned, Tiffany. Oil, UAW, government shutdown, yields. How are you thinking, 30,000-foot view, Tiffany, about the economy? Are you in the soft landing camp? You know, inflation is going to return to that 2% target without a downturn?
Well, so I would say this in terms of your last question, answering it first. If you just look historically, the rate hiking cycles that started when inflation was as elevated as it was, in the United States, core PCE inflation was actually around 6% when the Fed started hiking interest rates. Looking back in time, when you've had rate hiking cycles that have started like that, it doesn't tend to end with the economy expanding. It tends to end, unfortunately, in some sort of recession. Now, that recession could be mild. So if we did have a soft landing looking ahead, that would be quite anomalous relative to history. Now, you asked me about just the general, the view of the economy. I think the bottom line is that the economy was way more resilient than expected, than anyone really expected in the first half of this year. But nevertheless, I think the things that drove that resilience, are potentially setting up to fade in the back half of this year. So obviously consumers, consumption was revised down, but overall consumption still 2% on average for the first half of this year, still quite strong. And then government expenditures also pretty strong as well in the first half of this year. But I think excess savings that were accumulated during the pandemic because of government transfers, those are running out. And then you have various headwinds from the government side in the back half of this year that should also slow growth. There's been a lot of discussion around student loan payments, and that should absolutely slow growth. But just government expenditures should also just slow. The other thing is a bit of a wild card here, as you mentioned, the government shutdown. This should have a temporary effect on the economy. But the longer the government is shut down, the more likely that you kind of get these what we call nonlinear effects. They kind of grow, and they become much more material. So, those are the kinds of things we're going to be looking for.